That's true, but November's the best for all over lighting, huh?
The last year before Lake Powell filled up, Tad and I were on Glen Canyon taking pictures, and we were on the river Thanksgiving Day.
Oh.
And some of my best pictures of canyon walls are on that trip.
Oh, Thanksgiving. I wouldn't think, I never even thought it'd make any difference what month it was.
Oh, you bet it does. A few clouds in the sky makes a difference. Bring in some clouds.
Yeah.
We got clouds. I think we're going to be okay. Well, Dad, why don't you just go ahead and move right into
You
it?
need them in the foreground.
Oh, in the foreground?
I don't think we're going to get them in the foreground. Not on this shot,
Well,
anyway.
let's forget about it until we can get some clouds in the foreground.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for them. You just sit there and wait for them, and then we'll kind of go from there. But you know, in our generation, in your generation, my generation, we're used to all these things, telephones and fashion, you know, all these going to the moon, all these things. But your generation, when you were young, they didn't even, I mean, airplanes were pretty new.
Airplanes were non-existent. I was born the year that the Wright brothers flew the first airplane.
Oh, see, what year was that?
1903.
Oh, three. I mean, that was when they first built the airplane?
That was the year they first flew their airplane.
And so, when was the first time you saw one? Or rode in one?
The first time I saw one, I think, was in Tooele. I had a mom when I was married.
Oh, you were already married when you...
We were living in Tooele, and there's a couple of planes coming there. They called it barnstorming. And I took a ride in it.
Took a wagon up?
A ride.
Oh, a ride in one. Well,
1903?
1903.
So, when you were born in Fruitland, was it?
Mm-hmm.
In New Mexico. And your mom and dad, what was your dad doing? What kind of work did he do?
Anything he could get it paid for.
Yeah, I guess that was tough times there.
He was a good barber.
Was he barbering back then?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he was a good barber. And when I was about 4 years old, we were living in Mancus. And he took me up the coal mine. He was mining coal. And the vein of coal was, it couldn't have been 4 feet. It was 4 feet or less. Those men had to work on their knees to mine that coal.
Oh, because they followed the vein.
To follow the vein of coal. And I remember being there once when they drilled holes and blasted the coal down.
And you're about 4 years old?
4 years old, they wouldn't allow anything like that in the mines today.
Oh, you were down in the mines then?
I was only 4 years old.
And you were down in the mines with your...
I was down in the mine with my dad and his partner mining coal. And
now, was your dad part owner in the coal mine or something? You said his partner. Oh, I see, his working partner.
he was just working in the mine. And I remember they drilled a hole to blast. They put black powder in there, and then they had what they called a squib. It was something like a straw filled with powder, and it burned slowly. And they put that in there and light that, and then the fire would travel during that squib and give the men a time to get out.
So it was a homemade fuse?
I think they made them themselves. I don't know whether they made them or bought them. But you put one on the floor and light it, and it would run around all around the room until it went out. Self-propelled.
And then when they mined it, then they must have had horses that pulled the cart out. They just
not then. No.
Oh, but they just push the carts out.
I don't know how they got it out.
Because you were 4 years old, you didn't remember.
They didn't ask me to carry any out.
So you did look like that. And so it was your mom? And you were what? You're the oldest? You're not the oldest.
I was
Aunt
the
Nora?
oldest boy. I had two sisters older.
Yeah, that would be Nora and
Mabel.
Mabel. And you're the first boy. So where then, did you go to school in Mancus or?
No, I was only 4 years old.
I know, but did you live there?
No, we moved. We only stayed. I was trying to think how long we stayed in one place until I was 6 years old.
Oh.
I was born in Fruitland. We moved to Mancus. Dad worked on a farm. He sharecropped for a farmer. Then we went up to Mancus and he mined coal there. And a little later he moved up to a sawmill just a few miles up the canyon and worked in the sawmill. And then from there we went back to Fruitland. And we were only there a little while when we went to St. John's.
Now St. John's where you spent quite a bit of time?
We were there when Mabel, no, not Mabel, no. Lawrence was born in Mancus. Anything, Lawrence. Then Nellie and Earl and Otis were born in St. John's.
So you were there for quite a while then.
Yeah,
So is that-
about 6 years?
So then, did you go to school there?
Yeah, I started school there in the first grade.
Now, what kind of school was it? Did everyone meet in just one classroom? All the grades?
No, they had a pretty modern school. Those days it was considered they had a brick building, 2-story, and I think I know there was at least 4 rooms in that building. And the 3rd grade was my best year there. I remember 3rd grade. The teacher's name is Cora Sherwood.
You remember the teacher's name?
I remember
I
that.
don't remember my
She
teacher.
And during that year, that was in the 3rd grade, they took me at a spell bee up into the 4th grade.
So you skipped up?
And I think there were, I don't know, about 6 of us. But I went up from the 3rd grade up to the 5th to compete against those 1st graders. And I was one of the last. I was the last. But I remember the word I got spelled down on. Need.
Need?
They asked me to spell need like kneading dough, or do you need something? And I spelled it the wrong way.
Ah. And so you were...
So it was kneading dough, like K-N...
Yeah. Cake or something like that.
Yeah.
Kneading bread.
Yeah.
I got spelled out.
That's what they call it? You got spelled down?
I got spelled down.
Spelled down.
So, if the other guy had spelled it wrong, then I would have won.
Ah.
Oh, is that... So there's just 2 of you competing?
There are only 2 of us left standing.
Oh.
And we had spelled several words. And we finally come to this, and he'd had the first turn.
He'd have probably missed it.
He'd have missed it, and I'd known what to spell.
Well, when I went to school, there quite a few Indians went to school with us. They had that reservation thing going there. Did you have Indians in your school?
Oh, well, there were Mexicans there, a lot of Mexicans.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because you were in...
I learned to speak a few words of Spanish, Mexican, but very little.
What made you, how come you remember the 3rd grade? There must have been something you taught the teacher or something.
An instant like the spelling.
Oh.
Then the 7th grade was easy for me. We were in Blanding then. We moved from St. John's in February. We started from St. John's and ended up in Blanding on the 14th of March.
Get there. Wagon?
Wagons.
Didn't have the cars, huh?
You have to move. Read that life story of mine.
Well, I'm just bringing out some things from the life story.
It,
Yeah, I want you to tell me about it.
You sit here and tell me about it.
No, I want you to tell me about it.
So what year did they end up in Blending?
I ended up in Blanding just 2 weeks before I was 12.
Wow.
But I was in the fifth grade when I left St. John's, and then I was out of school about 6 weeks. So when I came to Blanding, we were different state, curriculum was different, their subjects, and I had to take fifth grade over.
Mm.
In the seventh grade, I got an honor certificate, the best student in,
Seventh grade.
I think, in the grade school.
Where was this? Where was the school in Blaine? Was that old school where I went?
Yeah, yeah.
Same one?
Mm-hmm.
Had the old wooden floors and.
One floor, they added on to it while you were going to school there or after?
I think it was before probably. It was a pretty good sized school.
Yeah.
And I remember they had the wooden floors in it, and,
Oh, yeah.
and at recess time, somebody run around the building with a bell and ring the bell. Time to come back in. So,
That's where we held church,
oh, in the school?
in the school, and they had a green curtain separating those two rooms. Then they had a room was kind of a library.
Well, did they build the Relief Society building then? Was it built? You know, the one had
I'm not sure.
it had a tower and a bell in it.
No, I think it was there at the time they were building the church.
Oh,
I was there when just the foundation had been built, or during the time it was built. Then it was a long time before they got the church finished.
now they made their own brick there too, didn't they? I know they had a donkey around and mixed the mortar, and they formed and fired the brick and built the church there. Yeah.
That was interesting,
Yeah.
very interesting.
So you were there from 6th grade on then until
Now.
high school. Well, you went to work, I know, but anyway, you went to high school. What it was in this period of time then when you were driving a truck or you're driving the mail to Bluff? And how old were you?
I think I was 6th or 7th grade along there when Dad went out to Seago to work in the mines, and he found a job for me, took me out of school. And I quit school and went out there, and then from then on I had a terrible time going to school. I had help provide for the family in a way.
Yeah.
And so,
You mean it was hard to go to school because it was hard to have a job and go to school?
The last winter, the year I went to high school, I finished second year of high school is all educated outside of correspondence courses, and I took enough correspondence courses to, I think, to finish high
Yeah.
school.
Well, tell us about your experience. As I remember, you were about 14. You got a job driving the mail from Blanding to Bluff, an old Model T Ford.
You want me to tell that story again about how I learned to drive?
Yeah.
I think I've told it to you, doesn't it?
I don't remember.
Well, you've never told me. I think I've read it, but you've never told it to me.
And that thing sitting up before me has never heard it either. But Dad bought a Model T Ford soon after we got to Blanding. And he couldn't find work in Blanding. So he left the car there and went somewhere, I don't know. But he had told me a little about the mechanics of it, and I had ridden with it, noticed what he did. 3 pedals, 2 gears, had a high and low gear, and a reverse, and a brake. And so one day when he was away, I went out there and started fiddling around with that, and I got the motor cranked up.
They had to crank it too.
Oh yeah, you had to crank it. Of course, I was I was 13 then. I was 13. And so I got in the car and fiddled around, and pretty soon I put just a little lever on the side of the steering wheel, turn on the gas, and the motor rolled up, back, and then I pressed on the clutch or low gear, and it started moving back, and then I pressed on the reverse, and it moved back and forth. There's no fence around the house, so pretty soon I was going around the house. And pretty soon I had all the kids, 5 of them all younger, and the baby was only 2 or 3 months old.
This was your family?
Yeah, mothers and sisters
Yeah.
younger than I was.
Yeah.
Lawrence and
Earl.
Alan, Nellie. Nellie was the baby. And I went around the house a time or two, and pretty soon I says, well, let's go for a little more ride to myself. So I took off toward Uncle Ed's farm,
Down by Pilot Knoll?
about a mile from where we lived. We lived down there in the swale, you know.
Oh, yeah, down by Uncle Clarence.
And I took off when there was just a little bit of grade to go up to get on the road. And I killed the engine. I didn't give it enough gas. I backed down and got out, cranked the engine, give it some gas, and we got on the road and we went out the forest.
How come nobody pulled you over and said you're too young to be driving?
Who would do that?
I don't know. I went out to the farm and turned around and come back. And going out, there's an irrigation ditch I had to cross. It had water and mud in it. And when I got almost to this ditch, here come Mom, looking for her family.
Family.
Looking for the family.
Well, how many were in the car?
There was about 5 of us.
Oh my gosh.
Here come Mom. And I got up. She was across the ditch, and I looked for her to pull us all out of there and leave the car, you know. And one of the kids was sitting in the front seat with me, and suddenly I opened the door and said, "Get in, Mom." She climbed with me.
Wow.
And the only thing that she said to me, got to a hill, there's 3 or 4 hills that we had to go up over to get the house. And she says, "Frank, where's your brake?" I stepped on the brake to assure where the brake was. And when Dad come home, we went for a ride. And we got down by 3 Cedars, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
The roads were nothing but ruts.
Yeah, just a cattle road, wagon trail.
And stopped, got out, looked around, and crawled in the back seat, and he says, "Frank, it's your turn to drive."
Huh.
Wow.
In 2 months, I was driving from Monticello to Blanding.
Monticello to Blanding, did you take some to Bluff too?
Well, yes, right on through. I'm sorry.
Yeah. From Monticello to Blanding, then on down to Bluff.
I stayed with Uncle Chester in Monticello. He was running a grist mill up there. I'd get up about 6 o'clock in the morning. Take me an hour and a half to get to Blanding, and the same time to get to Bluff. Then back up, and it took me a full 8 hours to make that trip.
Oh, to make the round trip.
Right, make that trip. And I did that for a couple of months, I guess.
Oh.
Now, what were the roads like on that route?
Roads?
Yeah.
What roads?
Yeah, what roads? There were ruts. You followed ruts. And the sidewalls of your tires wore out a long time before the tread.
So, could you like fall asleep on it and it would just keep going in the ruts?
Yeah, you could just about turn it loose at Monticello and just sit there. That's just, I think that, I never heard that before, but that's about the way it was.
Well, did you have any trouble? Did you have to repair the car on the way?
I tore the rear end out. I had to repair the rear of those Fords up between Devil Canyon and Long Canyon.
So you just took the tools with you, and
I had to. Oh, anybody who went to it was real foolish. And a patch kit
for tires.
and a hand pump.
Now, what was your most useful tool?
A tire iron and a pump and patches.
Wow.
I don't remember making many trips without a flat tire. You had to do that on the road. And a jack.
Now, I remember as a little boy hearing about your mail route, and it seems like Matt said that you always kept some baling wire in a car.
Oh, yeah. You carried that on your car or your wagon, anything that had wheels on, you carried baling wire.
Is that because things would fall off and you'd...
Oh, fast.
Oh, that was like a welding job now.
Oh, I see.
Really fasten things together.
There's lots you could do. Found out you could do a lot with a hairpin too. Yeah.
Well, when you're around 13 then, was that when you and your friend got fooling around with the Ford oil?
No, that came a little later.
No. So, what was it like in Blanding at that time? That was more Indians there than there was Mexicans then. That time, because I remember they used to have those big dances. They'd build a fire and out and the things, and the Indians would dance around, and they'd grab you and they'd dance with you until you paid them, and then they'd let you go.
I think they called them bear dances.
The bear
They
dance.
still have them.
Oh, do they? They used to have them right out by school, and that big, before they developed it there.
That was a good place for them. They called it the town square.
Yeah.
That's where they hold their races and
Well,
all
they-
their activities like that.
Well, they had some trouble within there one time. Do you remember, was that before you remember? Or?
I was, I guess I was working on the Sunnyside. That's about the time Mom and I married.
That's when they had a kind of little uprising down there.
I think that was about 1923 or somewhere along there, and that's about the time Mom and I was living in Tooele.
Well, tell us.
About the time, you were
27.
27, and probably it was around 26, somewhere around there. Anyway, Mom and I had just been married a little while.
Well, how's the story go about the Ford coil and the crystal set? Did
That
you?
one?
Well, your radio, when you put this crystal set together, it was a crystal set and a Ford coil, wasn't it? Where you sent messages?
No, this was when I was about 17, 18.
Well, did you have a wire strung at one time and then you?
One time, Howard Kimmel and I built our own telephone from different parts, just put them together. We'd find a part here and a part here, and we'd make a few parts. Then we strung a wire from his place down across to my place. He lived up by the high school, and I lived down there in the gully.
Down by Uncle Lawrence's place?
Below the mill.
Oh, below the mill.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's where Grandma Wright was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a long ways.
It was pretty close to a mile.
Where did you get all of that wire and all those parts?
That would be telling a secret, and
Ah.
the police would be after me immediately.
Well, was
Actually, when there was a telephone line between Monticello and Bluff, they had two wires, one for a negative and one for the positive. They found out they could use the ground for the negative, just one wire and the ground. So when those wires are down, they just take it up, wrap it around the other one, and just use the one wire. And where that wire came down, or where it was supposed to come down, we decided.
Yeah.
And then we'd take that wire and
was there phone service in Blanding at the time?
just one station. Central.
Huh.
Yeah.
Was it common then for everyone to have a phone in Blanding?
It was the only phone in Blanding. It was the Central.
Well, if you wanted phone, you went up the station then, huh?
If you wanted, and it was nothing to wait 2 hours to get a call into Salt Lake.
Well, telephones were pretty in infancy then.
Yes, telephones were. Oh, they were in Blanding anyway.
Yeah. Was it the same one we had at home with the crank on the side, or
Yeah.
was it an earlier model than that? That was
Then after they started getting phones in the home, we'd ring a long and a short, or long and 2 shorts, and
party line.
everybody was on one line. Only 3 or 4 phones, but everybody on one line.
Yeah.
And everybody'd go to the phone list.
Yeah, listen to what's going on.
I don't understand. They would just pick up the phone to just listen to what's going on?
Yeah, after you raised the receiver, you had to raise the receiver before you rang the cranked it.
Oh.
You cranked it with a magneto.
And so you wouldn't hang it up, you just leave it so you could keep hearing.
When you, as long as you talked, you just hold that up to your ear. And then, of course, when that phone rang by everybody in town,
But listen,
go to listen, although it wasn't their call.
well, so what you're saying is, when you rang the phone, everybody's phone would ring.
Yes, everybody in town.
And
Then finally they divided the town up. Then they got a central, and you had to call central if you want to go to the other side of town.
I see. So the whole town was just one big party line.
One at first,
Yes.
then 2 party
Yeah.
lines.